meeting to order. This is the meeting of the RMLD Light Department Board of Commissioners. It's being videotaped at the RMLD offices at 230 Ash Street in Reading. This meeting is being videotaped for distribution to the community television stations in North Reading, Wilmington, and Linfield. I read our code of conduct. The RMLD Board of Commissioners recognizes the importance of hearing public comment at the discretion of the chair on items on the official agenda as well as on items not on the official agenda. We ask that all questions or comments from the public be directed to the chair, and that parties, including members of the RMLD board, act in a professional and courteous manner when addressing the board or responding to comments. What's recognized by the chair, all persons speaking, addressing the board shall state their names and address prior to speaking. It is the role of the chair to maintain order in all public comment or ensuing discussion. So, with that, we move to introductions. We have our CAB member here. So,
Welcome, Dennis.
Welcome, Dennis.
Dennis, nice to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, okay. You got any comments, or?
Glad to
Okay,
be here.
okay, good, good. We got public comment, from our public. And then we move to the reorganization of the Board of Commissioners. So, first up should be the officers. So, at this point, I will open the floor. Well, actually, I'll make a couple comments first. I should make a couple comments.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. The past year has been a very interesting year, at times very stressful. Kind of stressful when you see yourself vilified in front on the TV, but, you know, live. But it's been a stressful, but I think we've come out the other side now at this point. So I think we did all right. So anyway, and with that, I will.
I'd like to make an addition to that.
Sure.
I'd just like to say, Mr. Chairman, I think you did a yeoman job this year in terms of handling all the affairs of the RMLD and certainly with the town as well, and I applaud you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
I would echo that. I'd also say, I think for the purposes of the audience, that may not fully comprehend what we mean by stress. I think the challenge is we're all town members, and most of us town meeting members, so we understand, empathize, and are very connected to the town, but we also serve as commissioners, which means our priority is to do what is responsible and appropriate for the RMLD, which also does impact the town, but sometimes they're not completely overlapping, and therein lies some of the stress in the discussions and trying to satisfy both responsibilities. But I would agree with John. I think you've done a great job, Phil,
Thank you.
in part,
Thank you.
because of your experience both in town and also on the board, so
Okay.
we appreciate that.
Very good. Thank you.
I echo that as well, Phil.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic job.
Okay, very good. Okay.
If nominations are open,
The nominations are now open.
I would like to nominate Dave Hennessy for the role of chairman of the board for the RMLD.
Is that seconded?
I'll second that
All
motion.
right. Any other nominations? If not, I will close it.
They've got the most votes
What?
ever in.
Yes, Mr. Vote.
Okay. Somebody move to close nominations, if you would,
Move to
please.
close. Move to close nominations?
Is that seconded?
Second?
All in favor of closing nominations, raise your right hand. Opposed, that motion carries. We're now voting for Dave as chairman. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? So you now get to step over here. You're now in charge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're now in charge.
You're in the scary seat.
What exactly do I do, Phil? Can you,
Remember those days? It was so long ago.
All right. I like this chair. This is
Congratulations, Mr. Chair.
pretty good. I like this. This is a power seat. This is really
Hand me a
good.
cup.
Oh, you need a cup.
Oh, we got a
He's already
cup
given me
here.
jobs.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. All right. Great. All right, so we got that done. So now we need to approve the board minutes.
Wait,
Oh,
Wait, whoop,
wait.
whoop,
Oh.
whoop, whoop.
What else do we have to do?
We gotta do the rest of the
The
order.
vice chairman.
Vice Chair?
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
So, do we have a,
I would like to nominate
Okay, yeah.
Dave Talbot for vice chairman.
okay, do we have a
I will second that.
Second,
All
right? Okay.
discussion? Is that what I'm supposed to say?
No.
No,
Just
okay.
any other nominations?
Any other nominations? All right, none heard.
Close nominations.
Close nominations? Motion?
A motion to close?
Yes?
Second.
Second? All right. All in favor
Close.
Yep.
to close? All right.
All in favor,
And
Dave
then all
Talbot.
in favor for Dave to be Dave Talbot for vice chair? All right.
Thank you.
Motion passed 5-0. Dave Talbot, Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
All right. All right, now I think we can go to approving some minutes, right?
Right, you got the committees now.
Oh,
The
okay.
committees, right.
Yes,
I
all right.
gave everyone a sheet that says who's currently in the committee.
You know,
Oh, here it is, right here.
Dave, did you want to?
I'd, on the audit committee, maybe we could start with the audit committee?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we retain the two individuals on the audit committee unless other commissioners have other thoughts on it. Because of Phil's background, he's a natural for that. He's been there before, he knows
Yep.
all the people, and I think it just makes total sense to have him as the chair.
And that's the liaison to the town as well, so.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, my only, may I? Mr.
Yeah.
Chair? Yeah, so I know there was some thoughts around reorganizing the structure, but I guess I'm happy to stay on audit, although if we're going to retain the same slate of committees, I would probably be more interested in the GM committee as opposed to the audit committee. Not that I don't like the audit committee, but having been off that for the year, but I don't know what other people's interests are, so why don't we,
Maybe look at all the committees, just look at the committee topic.
I'd be happy to serve on the audit committee, if you wish. I mean,
Okay.
Okay. Was,
okay?
Yeah, and I'll be more than happy to step off the GM review committee.
Okay.
So if Tom wants to step on that.
Okay.
If I may.
yeah, do you want to,
I would just suggest maybe we don't need a policy committee. I know we had a lot of policy review and made a lot of good changes, and perhaps if there's any additional ones, we can just handle it at the full board meetings, and we don't have to have separate meetings where all five of us end up attending most of the time anyway. Unless anybody disagrees, maybe we don't need a policy
I'd
committee.
like to comment.
yeah,
Yeah, so actually, in thinking about the slate, I would say, I would support that. I think having been both on and off the policy committee, I think the policies, although in every company can be dry and, a bit tedious, it's important that when we change them, everyone understands it. I think it's hard to get summary feedback from the committee to the larger board, so I think makes sense and it's logical that the policies get handled by the board. So the audit and GM committees probably are ones where there's rationale around doing it. I think on the general manager committee, I think there's activities that need to be done in terms of the normal, benchmarking, and because we want to make sure that the general managers, rewards and compensation are fair, both in terms of what she does for RMLD, but also relative to the market and so forth. So I think retaining GM and audit makes sense. I think there's value there, but I would agree with Dave that the policy one, unless others, or,
Yeah,
Colleen
if
has
I
a-
can make a
yeah, why
comment
don't you,
as well,
like to hear
Mr.
from you
Chairman.
both, yes.
I'd like to hear from the general manager as well in terms of whether there's, we've been addressing policies for a long time now, and we've changed a number of them, and I think rightfully so. And the question is whether we can deal with remaining policies that need to be updated or changed in an effective way in terms of the full board, and maybe do one per session, or so that we aren't doing 5 in one meeting, for example. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, we can try doing it however you like. I mean, at one point, we were doing one, and then we wanted to do more. So, because if everyone got together, but the policies, got so far out of date that in order to bring them up, in order to meet all of the laws and things like that, they got quite comprehensive in the changes. So, I mean, I can send them out, there's no deliberation when I send them out, and I guess we'll just talk about them when we meet. But some of them, I mean, we're only halfway done with them, there was over 30 of them. And they take a long time. Each one of them,
Right.
has substantial amount of changes.
So perhaps we could deal with them incrementally, meaning, one per session or whatever, but obviously it has to go at the pace that you're comfortable with in terms of feeling that it's complete, and in terms of being able to bring it to the board for recommendation to approve.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So I think there's two issues. One is whether we have a committee or not, or whether we just utilize the board. And then the second issue is when we convene, do we do it embedded in the regular meeting?
Yes.
But I think the idea of having the full board do it is beneficial. And then I think if we find this slippage, I think we always have the opportunity with noticing to say, okay, we have a board meeting in May or June, we're gonna, because it would also be an open meeting, I presume, that we would, we could still tag a half hour, in front of the regular meeting devoted to, or an hour, whatever it is, to policies and still accomplish the same objective, right? So if we can't tuck it inside the board meeting, we'd be able to, with noticing, put it in front or behind, preferably in front, so in case we have
Well,
executive session.
these tend to be open meetings though, right? So you'd have to,
Well, we'd notice it, so instead of a committee meeting on such and such a date before the regular board meeting, the regular board would meet, and it would be noticed that time frame was to do policies.
to incorporate
Yeah.
the policy as
Yeah.
well. Okay.
So
sure.
that way
Yep.
there, we still get the economy of not a separate night meeting, and
Right.
we don't have separate committees having to serve it up to the board.
I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Phil?
Sounds good to me.
So no policy committee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But we still review policies.
Right. Sometimes it's just
regular-
part of the regular session. If we need extra time, we'll add some time onto one, or before it. All right, good. Do we have to vote on that in any way?
No.
That's just, all right, that's good.
Vote to disband the.
And is, yeah, vote to,
Do we have to vote to disband the existing one, or not?
Nope.
No, okay.
no,
You
okay,
just don't appoint anybody to it.
all right. So that is gone. And the general manager meeting, you made the point that maybe that one makes sense to keep together. Does everybody agree with that? Is-
Well, I think what we.
The audit, definitely,
The audit-
everybody agreed on that.
Well, go ahead.
Dave Talbot, Dave Bennett, and the GM.
Okay.
Bill said he'd step down from that one.
Right, and then we have John going to audit, is that right?
Right. And if you need a third on the general manager, I'm happy to do that as well.
Okay,
Do we
If you
have,
need
what
a
do we
third.
have,
Do you
Jim?
need a
So we
third?
have, why don't we repeat them once for
And
everybody?
I'll send out something.
Yeah.
so we have Phil.
Yeah.
Phil is chair on the audit committee and John joining him.
And then I've got,
Nope.
Dave Hennessy chair on GM, Dave Talbot,
Okay,
And John.
yeah.
Yeah.
and John. Okay.
So I'm also on the town audit committee too, so not that, when we
Right.
meet in the town.
Then there's the town committee with Phil and
Right,
myself.
the town
right.
committee itself, so,
Okay,
I'll send out an email.
okay.
but that's not related to RMLD, town committee.
Well, I
It is-
kinda, I represent the RMLD's interest at that.
Okay.
In the overall, because part of the audit does include the enterprise funds,
Okay,
which we're considered as.
all righty.
So do you have 4 general manager at the moment?
That's too many.
That's too many,
Yeah.
because then we might, if that's the case, then we might as well just make it.
Yeah, I know, that's what I was thinking.
Is it possible? What do you guys think? Can we make the GM part of the, just make it part of like what we're gonna do for the policy committee?
I'd be happy to do that as well. I mean, quite frankly, I think we've refined it over the last couple of years,
Yeah.
so the questions
Everybody's
are there,
there.
the weightings are there, and so I think anything we would change would be incremental, quite frankly, so.
I think that works.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So, I agree with that. I think the only, it's probably stating the obvious, but I think it just then falls on the chair, vice chair to make sure in advance, because I think there is some things that need to get done in advance with respect to the performance review of the form, and so that'll happen, I think,
Right.
anyway, but just,
Yeah,
so it doesn't, because that's not a group activity, right? 4 people won't pull that together.
yeah, if I could comment on that as well, I agree, and we tend to be very delayed over the years in
Yep.
doing that. I'd like to see perhaps this year we try to do it on time. Would be a really good thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Instead of
right.
3 or 4 months late.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, so maybe.
When are we supposed to have that done?
Well, it's an interesting question, because with the calendar change, I would assume that the performance
right.
review cycle would change, which is okay, because we've had that experience with that. You just accommodate it, with a different time frame on a one-off basis. So if we didn't move the calendar change, the performance review and any approved compensation changes effective July 1, right? So you'd probably want to have the performance review. I mean, I guess we'd say we would want to do it, is July 1 the right, July 1's the effective increase date, right, Colleen? So, I mean, in a lot of companies, what you'd do, you'd have a different effective date, because your performance year closes, and then you do the review of, a month or two at max. But given how we do it, I would say if we didn't change the calendar, you would want to do the performance review in the June, July timeframe. So,
That seems reasonable. Then if we
Yeah.
had to do an interim one to catch up to the calendar year,
yeah.
we could do that
Yeah,
perhaps as well.
right. So I would say realistically, because we have been late, I think if we were, I mean, you'd want to get through the performance period because you wouldn't, it's hard to make a decision for the general manager when the year's still going on, right?
Well,
With respect-
yes,
I'm
but you,
confused.
sorry?
Okay.
I'm confused.
Well,
We
right
don't-
now
we
you're-
don't- we don't
Right
wanna
now,
wait.
it's July to July.
Yes, July to
And
July.
if we switch the budget to a calendar year,
You change the performance review.
would you need to?
Yeah,
It's-
because, well,
Well,
I would postulate you do.
That's a good question.
You could
That's a good
still,
question.
Don't need to.
Right.
your budget is still being done in a year. All of your goals are still being done in a year.
Yeah, but the idea is you have your financials are pegged to a year, so I think it would be unusual. Most companies today are going with
Wendy's got something to say.
an annual focal review, which is a focal calendar review, but
Okay.
I think you'd want to, I don't know exactly how much of a difference it would make, but if you got your review done in July, you'd be getting reviewed from July to July, but your performance period, which is a calendar year, because your performance period is now a calendar year, January to December, right? You're measuring your revenue and your everything.
Wendy, you have a,
Let me try to clarify a little bit.
yeah.
So we're in FY 18, we're
Yeah.
preparing the budget
Good, she ought to
for
come
FY
up,
19.
she ought to come up to the
Oh,
microphone.
yeah, can you come up so the
Cable TV.
people at
can-
home can hear?
Our multitude of fans.
You're right. Both of our viewers can hear you.
Yes, please, okay. And I'm not saying I'm 100% sure on this, but, so we're right now presenting the budget for FY 19. So there is in fact a fiscal year 19, but there's only going to be, based on your vote, a 6-month fiscal year 19. So we cannot consider ourselves calendar year until the end of the year.
Right.
So, as Tom is stating, there would be a performance review for July 1 for this past fiscal year of FY 18. And then possibly January 1 would be just the 6-month
Right,
for July through December. And then we'd be on another 12-month
right.
review process.
So-
Right, I think that what Colleen
That
is
make sense?
raising is whether.
Yes, thank you, Wendy.
But I think
Is
you
that
were.
not right?
I thought I heard you say, Colin, you were raising the question, would you even have to change the review period from July? And I think the answer is yes, because your measuring period in your budget is all tied, that will be tied to a calendar year.
What I was trying to clarify was the year. We're still fiscal year until 1/1 of 19.
Right.
We're still going to be 6 months of a fiscal year, because then we have to present a different budget
Yeah.
at the end of September. Okay.
So you got to do a lot more work this year
Thank
because
you
of the
very
new
much.
vote. It sounds like.
Yeah, Mr.
Double
Chair.
the work, it sounds
Yes,
like.
double the
All right,
work.
yeah. So, let me try to summarize. I think what I'd suggest, subject to others' input, is you would have July review done sometime in July, the one that's to cover the fiscal year
Yes,
18. That review would
Yes.
happen hopefully in July, effective July 1. There would be another review early 2019 for those 6 months, so you don't have to go a year and a half for review. And then subsequent, each future year, the review would get done in January, February.
Right after
based
the
on
year
the close of
closes,
the
right.
year. So your performance and your compensation is tied to the fiscal year. Does that
So I will work on revising my contract and getting all that done.
Well, I mean, there's another, does anyone disagree with that?
No, I think it makes
sounds
sense.
right.
Fine.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Dennis?
If you change the process for Colleen, does that mean everyone that's up for a raise in the next fiscal year gets another review in January too? So now every employee gets re-reviewed in January?
What would you do, Colleen? Or- Oh, okay.
Okay.
Er-
So all 5 of you would have double reviews in a 18-month period?
Yeah, but it's a prorated, so you get reviewed for 6 months, but, so if your increase was 4% for a 6-month review, it'd be prorated, so if that was 4%, you'd get 2%, right? Because otherwise, you'd be increasing there.
Yep.
And that's how it's normally done, but I'm sure Wendy will look at it. But are the other workers, are they, they're on a focal review too, right? They get reviewed, the same time each year? Or so it's all, most everyone's, there's a union review period, right?
Calendar year.
Yeah, but
Year increases
yeah, but it's the same time for everybody?
outside of the senior management.
Yeah, and what time of the year is it?
January 1st. Automatically, the calendar, the labor contract kicks in,
Okay.
any kind of increase.
So it actually matches better now.
It's
when
good.
you go to-
Yeah, great.
I think he was talking about the employee review, not the union contract wage increase.
Well, yeah, those are separate, I guess, right?
Those are separate.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily coordinate with a monetary increase. They, only 5 people are outside of the union.
Yeah.
And so I leave it to each senior manager as to when they want to do their annual reviews of their employees within the IBEW.
As it currently stands, though, most of the employees get reviewed at what time of year? Is it the beginning of the year, or is it very?
We have some jobs in IBEW that are on a progression path, and they may be eligible to step up to the next progression level in a year. Some of them are in 2 years, so they may have a mid-1-year review process. It depends on the career development of each job description within IBEW. The AFSCME unit doesn't usually have an evaluation unless they have a promotion or they're applying for a job.
Okay, so, just on the committees, we have one left, right? That's what we're saying? Audit,
Yep.
Right.
Phil and John. Okay, that's simple. Good. So-
Back to,
Oh, yeah.
now that we understand what's happening, I think because of what we're doing with the fiscal year, it's even more important that we have a timely review of the general manager, so.
July, we're
What I was
saying.
gonna suggest is maybe Tracy could put something in the calendar, so we should probably start looking in June as to what needs to happen.
That's a good idea.
In terms of getting things ready. and,
Yeah.
Prepped, and because Colleen does a self-assessment, so, because we don't want that to go too long, because they'll start to butt up against the interim review.
That's right, because we're only gonna have 6 months later, we'll be doing that again.
That makes sense.
All right.
And one other thing, I'm worried that the perception might be that we're not reviewing policies by getting rid of I know we don't have an obligation to do the committees, but I wonder if the chair and the rest of the commissioners think we should, maybe we should feature that as a section on the agenda, or just if it, without a committee, it might lose visibility.
Mhm.
And,
Just have it as a standard.
or something, maybe someone has some way, so we don't lose the visibility of it,
You could make it on a variable basis. If something's
Yeah.
ready to be reviewed,
Yeah, but if
Bring
it's
it up
on the
and review it.
agenda as policy
that'd be the
reviews.
general manager's.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it would make sense to make it a standard part of our meetings, and maybe there's nothing in there on a particular night, and that's fine.
And I think it'll force us to make sure we do, because the reality is, we know policies have been an issue in the past with respect to, that they are in every company, so it just would force us to look at it.
That's a good idea.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
So when we had the policy committee, we would have, because some of them had substantial changes to them, we would have Chris Pollitt here to go over you know, some of the reasons why we had the changes. So that'll just come through probably as an opinion attached. We planning on, you want him to be here? Because that was the other reason why we were doing a multitude of them in the policy committee, so that if we did 5 or 6 of them, he would just come, speak on all 5 or 6. Everyone had the opportunity to ask questions, and then,
Well, maybe we could still do them in groups and have Chris here, and we'll just have it a little bit earlier of a meeting, like Tom had
Right.
mentioned. So maybe that's still the way to do it.
okay,
Dave?
I was just gonna say, if we're getting the opinions on what the edits should be
right,
with an opinion, maybe we can decide at that point whether we also need to have him come.
yeah,
And we don't, it wouldn't be automatic, but we could decide, and the
Okay.
chairman could decide whether we need to have that extra,
right.
Okay,
somebody actually here, yeah.
that sounds good. All right. Okay. I think we can approve some minutes now. I've been trying to do that. But it's all been good stuff, though.
Who's been interrupting?
I know. You've been doing a good job, Commissioner.
Exciting meeting so far.
All right, so we want to have, somebody want to suggest a motion on move? got this one?
I'll
All right.
move that the board approve the meeting minutes of February the 22nd, 2018, March 12th, 2018, and March 15th, 2018, as presented.
All right, do we have a second? Yep, second. Discussion? No? All those in favor? Okay. Those minutes have passed. And then this is RMLD Board Member, Citizens Advisory Board meeting, April 11th, report. Mr. Hennessy, that was me. I was there with Dennis, and we met at the Linfield Town Hall. And
Field trip.
yeah, it was a field trip. It was exciting. Why did we go to Linfield? Just to
We
take?
rotated as part of the
Rotated
contract.
around.
Oh, that's, I didn't know that. Okay.
The agreement, so we did Wilmington last year, and so,
Yep. And we did the capital budget.
Yep.
And Hamid made his presentation to the pleasing of the CAB, and you guys all voted to pass that, so.
we haven't voted yet, but we'll vote.
Oh, yeah, right, we're holding the vote
Yeah,
till both
two of
of
them together.
right. Any other comments
Tomorrow.
from that?
On that, the format had changed from the year before a little bit, but tomorrow night we'll do the operational budget, and then we'll vote on everything, so
Right,
I don't see any problems yet.
right, right. It seemed like there was no concerns. Vivek had a lot of questions, but they were all
He came with a whole
satisfactory. What's that?
He came with a whole notebook.
I did. He was very prepared. Okay, report to the chair, Phil Pacino,
Yeah,
the meeting of the
former
sub.
chair. For the former chair.
Oh, right,
The
former chair, meeting of the subcommittee on the payment to the town of Reading.
The subcommittee met last Wednesday, April the 11th. At that meeting, it was Mr. Stempeck, myself, Mr. Enzinger, Mr. Hooper, and Mr. Cohen were the members that were there, that attended. We originally talked about the proposal that this commission had agreed on in terms of the 2-year period of the, with the minimum, the floor being the 2.5, or the lower being the higher of either 2.5, or CPI with a maximum of 5 years, with the idea that that would start for 2 years with a study then in place. We kind of morphed then to a fact that the committee really thought, well, maybe it should be, the study should come first. Because we had talked about the fact that the present, even in the present formula, it looks like that formula may not be sustainable going forward, where there will not be enough capital, because it'll be more and more eaten up as time goes on. So the committee did vote to ask the commission to instruct the department to proceed with the study post haste, to report back as soon as possible as to what the results of the study are, looking at the sustainability of the formula, but also the capital needs of the department going forward at this point. And John, you correct me if I got anything wrong.
No,
there.
I think you did. I think you
Yeah, okay,
got it correct.
okay. So,
Is there anything that we need to do with this as a
I think that-
group here?
I think the appropriate thing to do would be for us to have a motion to instruct the department to proceed forward with the study. And so I'll make the motion if you
Okay,
want.
sure.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, yes.
Yes.
before we do that, so is there, Do we feel there's a need to keep the subcommittee in place, and there may well be?
Yes, yes,
Or
yes,
is that a?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Period. That's not, yeah, I mean, the town, from the town representative, asked if there's some sort of RFP that be shared with the town in terms of the planning and some of this, to make sure that things that they're covered.
Yes, that's true. They wanted to review the scope of the
Right.
Proposal.
Given that Monday's town meeting, do we know what the plan is with respect to?
They're just going to give it, Dan just talked about giving just an update at that point.
Okay.
So that's,
Which I assume would mirror what you just
right,
articulated.
mirror what I've said.
Okay. Any other comments on that?
Yeah, I think we just, in the committee, just to reinforce this, we decided that we really needed to understand what the facts were in terms of economic development versus decrease in kilowatt hours in our served communities. And so, rather than sort of jumping the gun and getting into equations that might cause problems in the future, that was the reason we decided that we needed this study to be done by a competent, independent outside force, and we've all agreed that the general manager should certainly handle that.
Great. All right. Should we make a motion? You got another comment?
Yeah, just having sat as an observer, not a subcommittee member, I did get the impression from everybody that there was a sense of urgency around, not making it be a 5-year study versus a, 6-month
yeah.
study, which means at some strategic point, it might make sense, and I'm sure Colleen will do part of that from her perspective, but just having a timeline of events, because it's easy enough for things to go from a month to 3 months, because we only meet once.
I think that's will happen though, when we get the standard process going.
Yeah, I
The
think so,
proposal,
too.
going through the RFP process and finding the right person or company to be able to conduct it, and then they'll submit a proposal in terms of, a PERT chart in terms of when they expect certain things to be accomplished, et cetera. And I think Colleen's number that she had thrown out, it's an approximate as well. Date was probably in the 6-month or so time frame.
Right.
I think it would be difficult to see it being concluded before then, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think it's like always, it's what's the end date, because 6 months becomes everyone knows what 6 months is today, but, 3 months from now, 6 months is 9
Right.
months. So
Right.
it's putting some actual dates down, but.
Sure.
I do believe we set a price too on it.
We say no more than $100,000, or was it, did we say something about that? No, I heard that number.
There was a number thrown about, again, there's no facts involved here.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
it was,
It's not okay.
we thought that it was approximately in the order of $100,000, correct me if I'm wrong. But I would suggest that, who knows what it might be. I don't think it'll be $1 million, and I don't think it'll be $10,000, so it's gonna be somewhere in between those.
Yeah, I think the cab representative, which I think was,
Yeah.
George, maybe he didn't advance the 100, but I think George was concerned about putting a fence around it, just from the cab's perspective, which.
He was concerned about putting a ceiling on it? Or
Yes.
He wanted to have a ceiling on it?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Did you get that impression?
I think I did hear him say that.
I don't know. I got the impression that it was just a curiosity question, approximately how much would it cost, and obviously that comes out of our budget, so it has an impact on everyone. But it's very difficult to project this. Let's let the professionals do it
Right.
and come back.
And
Can I add something?
Yes.
When you're doing a study like this, they're going to ask for your assets, the age of your infrastructure by classification. For example, they'll start with, how many transformers do you have, or how old are they? And they'll go through each, because they have to determine all of your assets. And then they'll work through, how much is appropriate to spend on your capital based on your aged infrastructure. They'll take a look at the reliability study, they'll take a look at your staffing, they'll take a look at your financials, past and present. And then they'll talk to Jane and people in Jane's area of expertise on projections on power supply, and they'll go through the entire gamut. So it's gonna take a while, and it's gonna be pretty detailed, because we currently don't have an asset management system here. So we have GIS data, but we don't have it by class of continuing property units. So, you know, you have to have enough detail in order for them to put together a financial outlook that, you know, reconciled, but is also projecting forward, so they can say, okay, this is what the overview looks like based on what's happening in the industry. This is what we think you should invest in your infrastructure. Here's what monies we see you having available based on where the markets are going and what your sales are going. You know, they probably will look at economic development, just concepts in each of the
Absolutely.
towns.
Right.
And again, unless meters are spinning, they may take a small assumption that there is some viable land, but it's difficult, because I know, you know, one of the comments was, well, if the MWRA goes into North Reading, you know, that could open up, and, you know, that could be great. But that's really hard for someone to put into a report or a
Yeah,
study.
there's a lot of unknowns, right?
There's a lot of unknowns. So unless the water infrastructure is already in place and they're already developing, you may have a better chance at that point saying, okay, we're looking at this much, you know, kilowatts of load added based on what's already being built. But other than that, you know, you're going to have a lot of assumptions that are not going to be, you know, showing, you know, things going way up as far as sales.
Right. Sounds like a lot of work for you and your team, too. There's a lot of
Well, I
time.
don't know. It's going to be some work, and I think we have the expertise here between, you know, Jane, Hamid, and Wendy to be able to review and give them the input that they're looking for. But the economics of it is going to be challenging. You know, it's anytime you're projecting into the future, it's not that easy.
No.
You know what I mean? And
May I ask a question?
yeah.
Is the purpose of this to find out what our payment can be going forward? Is that the purpose of this, or is there a larger purpose?
I would suggest that that's a significant portion of why we're doing this, because if the payment to the town keeps increasing at a constant rate, which it has been, or if inflation does increase and it accelerates, and our load is going down, it's pretty obvious that as a fixed cost organization, you're going to have an intersection at some point where
Right.
you can't pay it. And you'd love to hope that your economic development would outpace, you know, the increase that in the consumer price index. But there's nothing clear that that's going to happen. As a matter of fact, I sent everyone around an article yesterday, I think, about how an MIT head of a department for motors is they're developing radically new motors for appliances, meaning your washers, dishwashers, dryers, etc., that'll operate at a fraction of the power. So think about LED lighting. So LED lighting displacing regular lighting. Lighting is what, 15% of the whole total power load in general? So let's drop that to 5%, which has happened. I mean, that's not a gimme. That's actually happened. It's not a something that's going to happen in the future. We're all putting in LED bulbs. Same thing with the industrial drives. I mean, no one wants to talk about that because they don't understand what they are, because these adjustable frequency drives are far more efficient than anything that's been in place in the last 25 years. So all industry is adopting them. So it means that the power load is going to be coming down. And now if we move into the residential sector and put in these new motors, and I would project that it's probably a 5-year transition between design of a brand new motor and implementation from an OEM standpoint before we can all enjoy them. It's going to have a major impact in terms of use of electricity. And I suggest you look at your computers. I mean, your computers use a fraction of the energy they did 5 years ago. So everything is using less. So that means you need economic development, more businesses, more condos, more residential structures being built. And if you don't have any land, they're not being built. I mean, we're going to see some here in Reading, obviously. But so there's a lot of, it's a complicated picture, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm suggesting we get something wrapped around it where we can do some projections, some scenarios, and some what-ifs. And there are mechanisms you can use to to kind of fill that out, which we don't need to go into here. But I think it's just the right thing to do to have a good study done, so we're not, again, caught in the future saying we can't help you, any of the
Right.
towns.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Long as
So
we-
the purpose of the study is to do what? I know it sounds like a stupid question, but it's to see what's gonna happen in the
We're
future?
studying the financials
Yeah,
is what we're doing.
okay.
So
the
that we
study-
can determine what our net income
Right.
is projected to be, so that we can determine or make recommendations to the board of what to use that net income for.
Okay, so I guess I would take a step back and say, if we're gonna spend another big amount of money on a study, it should be to decide what our strategic plan is to make sure we're producing as much income and revenue as we can be. Not like sort of, this sounds like a passive study, like, oh, what will happen to us in the future based on externalities, when I'd like us to be looking around at what we could be doing to make the business more diversified, to take best practices from other municipal light plants, which are doing many different things. That's the study I'd like to see us be doing, because then that sets us on a course of doing, maximizing what we
Yeah.
do
If I
here.
could comment on that, Dave,
Yeah.
I think you're right,
Yeah.
but I think that should be a phase two.
Yeah.
In other words, first is
Well, we know-
deciding whether you have anything sustainable or not. If you
Right.
don't, then the biggie is, what if? I mean, what do you do about that? And so and we talked about this
Yeah.
over the past 2 years, about alternatives that we could look at. And I'm in complete agreement with that, but I think we need to get the numbers down first.
Right, but as Colleen just said, there's a lot of things we don't know. We don't know what the power supply situation is gonna be necessarily. We don't know how many electric cars are gonna come in. We don't know whether MWRA is gonna come in. So there'll be all these things that we don't know, and the consultant's gonna say, well, I don't know, because this could happen, or that could happen, or the
Well,
other thing could
that's,
happen.
no, if you're, to do it in this, I wasn't gonna mention this, but there
Yeah.
are methodologies for
Okay.
doing that. As a professional, I can tell
Sure,
you.
sure,
Use Monte Carlo simulation,
Okay.
and you provide what-ifs with high probability from people in the know to throw all those variables into a pile, and then it creates what's called a cloud of uncertainty. And you look at that cloud of uncertainty and find out where you are.
Okay.
And then what it gives you as an advantage is it tells you whether you have any chance at meeting it, for
Right.
one thing. And if you don't, it also tells you what you can do on certain segments of that to change the inputs to it. So
I know, I know you know this and I don't. I guess the question I would have is, have any other similar light plants done such a study that we could benefit from before we go on our own? I mean, because they're all gonna be looking at the same set of variables going forward. Have any of the others done something like this, that we could start by looking at that?
Well, I think other utilities have done studies on pilot payments, and, what should they be making of a pilot payment?
Right.
But I don't know that any other municipal is heading for a convergence at the speed that we're heading, because we do pay a significantly,
You're talking about the payment to the town, or to the towns, yeah. That's what you're referring to, in terms of,
I'm referring to what we pay out versus the kilowatt hour sales.
sure, I mean, our payment's off the charts. We've realized that, and in the white paper, that thank you for ordering that up. We've learned that, and that's a big deal. So I guess, but on the larger question of the future of the business and net income, have any other light plants done a study to kind of look at the big picture, like, and use these methodologies, John?
I'd like to turn this around and
Yeah.
say, part of your professional career right now is working for some
Well,
of these. And
sure.
I'd like to hear from you
I
in
don't
terms
know.
of what
I
you
mean-
know and what you found in terms of these.
Well, I mean, a lot of them are studying diversification, and that's interesting, and
But
we aren't.
in the context of what we're talking about, though, Dave, in terms of, payments to the town, and do they see a diminished role in how much kilowatt hours they're going to be selling? That's really where I'm.
In terms of pilot payments? I
Not
don't-
just,
I don't
not just
know.
even in terms of pilot payments. I mean, where do they see their electric sales going?
I think that everybody's saying the same thing, is that they're flat and declining, and everybody's kind of freaking out about it.
There we go.
I mean, yeah,
Okay.
there's no doubt about that. We see it, and they all do.
Yeah.
And that they're all saying, this is a different landscape, and what can we do differently?
Yeah.
And a bunch of them are doing different lines of business, other than just the same old, same old. So that's why I'm saying, and they're partnering with their towns to find how they can synergize and jointly procure, or how they can identify savings to the municipality, in our case, 4 municipalities and schools and public safety, and synergize in lots of different ways.
Could-
where the public safety.
Could
and
we
this-
include that then in terms of the scope of the proposal that we asked the consultant to do? And then if we find out that it's significantly more costly to kind of look at all those different options, maybe we trim it back. And that's one way to deal with proposals. You ask for the world, then you go up, way too expensive,
Yeah,
and you trim back the other
I
ones.
like that
Make
idea.
recommendations for increased revenue?
Yes. Because that,
Because, John, you just said it, if the consumption is getting even smaller, especially with appliances, but the cost of construction and distribution is not getting smaller.
correct,
It's
it's going
getting
up.
bigger.
It's going up, yes.
It's going up. And so we have to maintain this entire distribution infrastructure system, possibly for nothing more than a standby system. You know what I mean?
possible,
But
yeah.
unless everything is gonna become wireless, including all the substations go away, I mean, we still have to deal with what we have. You know, regardless of how much usage there is, it all still has to be there, even if everyone is just paying a standby charge.
Right.
But to speak to your point, Dave, I mean, yes, we still wanna have, you know, whatever the results are, say, okay, here's what you're projecting going to be able to meet. And that's either you're doing it by economic development and increasing your sales, or you're implementing another type of a business, or you're putting in HVAC system, you know, split systems, or you're putting in electric vehicle charging stations. And here's how you have to augment that, whether it's a rate increase or it's these type of things. And hopefully, the result of the study will actually give you some of them. But in some areas, you can have everyone buy an electric car in 1 month, and then you have other areas where you could give electric cars away and they don't want them. So each town is different from how they grasp onto, you know, the different ways of increasing the revenue. But it's, you know, it's a marketing thing, it's a study. I don't think you can do it all at once, all at the same time.
Yeah, Tom?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question, because I think before we do anything too far along, we should memorialize the charter for this study, because to me, what it really is an affordability study. Because we recognize that, as John said and others, the current path we're on isn't affordable because it really isn't tied to any business metric, right? Kilowatt hours or
Right.
anything you tie to in a normal business. So because of that, we're on a path of non-sustainability. So to me, it's even though the original question was, gee, can we give more? It's the umbrella issue is, what can the RMLD afford to pay that's reasonable? And that's a one-off thing, but we don't want to have to do that study every year. So then, once that's determined, then how does that change? Is it tied to kilowatt hours? You know, I think those are
Right.
that's the hooks. But to me, the base issue is what's affordable, because it's not the CPI that's driving the problem. It's the fact that the base is, 2-point-something million.
Right, it
So
keeps on growing,
even
yeah.
a small CPI is getting to be unmanageable. So I think if we focus on the affordability thing, and then what ways can we connect it to something reasonable in the business, whether it's kilowatt hours, assets, I'm not suggesting the answer, but it's gotta be something, so if revenue goes down, the payment can't go up, right? It'll
Right,
stay the same.
exactly.
So, and that's, a concern, obviously, that we know the town has, because they're looking for predictability and so forth, but, I think those are the issues that we'll deal with once we decide what it is, I think.
I'd like to add to that, Tom, because if I may, Tom said, let's go back to the original charter for why we started this conversation, and it was because of the payment issue. That's what it is. So why don't we have this thing be about what are the payments the other light plants are paying, and how do they arrive at them? Really limit it. It could be a very narrow study, just to give everybody the information about what goes on in Massachusetts and how they decide these things.
I think that should be part of it.
Yeah.
That's an addendum as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
I think that's data you can get relatively easily.
Right.
I think the rest of the study, though, in terms of the projections into the future, are far more interesting and relevant to us in terms of where we're going. Because if you can look into the future and see, even directionally, that you're going to be hitting a wall, you have some time to kind of make some corrections and get away from it. And then you can use the data from what the study gives for the other towns to say, this is one way we can correct it. Let's do what these other towns do. So I believe looking into the future is a good thing. You know, we all do it in our own lives personally, right? You look at where you're going to be tomorrow or next week or next year and your job, your family, everything else. I think we need to look into the future.
Are we asking for recommendations too from this?
What kind of
Yes.
consultant wouldn't give you a
Yeah, so
recommendation?
we're asking for recommendations, right?
I put up a slide that had a large chunk of the municipals in what they do pay.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
But if you're asking someone to do a study to go into each and every municipal and say, well, did you do a financial analysis and how did you arrive at that? I think what you're gonna find is a lot of what's happening here. Well, this is what we did,
Ad
you know,
hoc,
30
yeah.
years ago, and this is what we were doing. So unless they're coming to a convergence, they hadn't been looking at it. But you're
right.
also gonna find that there's a lot of utilities that are on a 10-year basis. We'll pay you $1 million for 10 years, and then we'll look at it again. So their process is that every 10 years, they take a look at their financials, and they make decisions based on that. But I think diving in beyond what they actually pay the town, and especially if you're gonna ask them, list all of your non-monetary contributions as well, that's gonna be a significant undertaking.
Well, we already know that we're paying more than other municipal light plants.
Yep.
I mean, we don't need a study to tell us that we're out of whack.
No.
And we know it's unsustainable.
That's all I'm
Or,
saying.
The other way of
So,
looking at it is that we're very fortunate.
I mean, so that's all I'm saying. You know, are we spending another $100,000 of ratepayers' money to tell us what we already know?
It's like maintenance, Dave. You know, you don't have to change the oil in your car. You can save that money.
Okay. Okay. Well, we should move on anyway. I mean, you're the chairman, but.
Dave, can I ask one thing?
Yeah,
We're talking about anywhere from, I guess, $10 to $100,000 to $200,000 to do this review. We're in the budget process right now. Is that money already into next year's budget so that you have the money to do this review? Like, where's this money coming from? Is it already in the budget for next year that we're reviewing now and gonna, vote on tomorrow night?
No?
So, we're gonna vote on a budget tomorrow night at the CAB, you guys are gonna vote on the budget after us, and there's $100,000 that's gotta come from someplace. So I don't know if anyone's put that together as far as,
Good point.
you
Yeah.
know, where's that funding coming from? Because you're not sure exactly how much it's gonna cost, but it's above
on
and
the
beyond the
budget,
budget.
yeah.
Well, I'm hoping to meet with someone this week, and that was exactly what I was gonna try to figure out, was how much was it gonna cost? Is it 10,000? Is it 50,000? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, but then the CAB will have already voted on a budget that isn't correct, because you need to now add another $100,000 to it. So do you have to hold off on the votes in the budget process till you add this?
Well, aren't there mechanisms for getting around that? Because if we have a budget, right, and 3 more transformers blow up than you think during the course of a year, there's funding for basically being able to take care of that. I mean,
That'd be more of an emergency
yeah,
funding, emergency circumstance. This is almost a planned circumstance.
it is.
So you're looking to approve a budget and say, plus $100,000, because you want to do a study. And that's the only problem I have with it, is you haven't allocated that money to that budget. What's the budget for if you're not gonna put things that you know have significant value in it into that budget?
No, it's a reasonable point. I guess there's two ways you can do it. One is you can assume that if the study decision happens after the budget's approved, that Colleen will bring forth, if you will, an additional whatever, it's not capital, I guess, additional expense item that needs approval with a justification of how that, because it doesn't have to be, to John's point, it doesn't have to be a negative impact to the, you know, it may be we need to do this study, so we need $100,000. The FY 2019 budget has these items, we're going to hold on this one or reduce these by, do you know what I mean? So it doesn't become a net add to, but You know, I guess the question is, and I don't know, Colleen would know best in the group, knowing that we want to do this, it's going to cost something, and we think so. Maybe we should ask before the budget's, because it hasn't been closed, right? You're still voting on.
Yeah, we haven't voted, we're gonna
You
go over
haven't
the
even voted
operational
on-
budget tomorrow
You
night.
haven't voted on the expense budget, so I don't know if it's worth
We
putting.
could just come back and ask permission to spend the money when we find out how much it's gonna cost. I mean, I wouldn't
But again,
hold
we
up.
already know that there's $100,000 above and beyond the budget that we're gonna vote on. That just doesn't seem right to me when you know it exists and we're gonna add an additional 100. That's gonna eventually affect the ratepayer,
So,
right? I mean, maybe I'm looking at it wrong. I
We don't know that it's $100,000 though. We
Well,
don't,
we've heard comments, we don't know what it is, but there's been comments that could be anywhere from 100,000 to 1 million or zero, so we don't really know how much that value really is, right?
Yeah, but it's not.
I know
gonna
it was a
be-
little
it's not gonna be
exaggeration,
a
but,
million, yeah.
but I'm saying,
Yeah.
we don't know the value, but we're voting on a budget and completing a budget that is missing $100,000 that we know are gonna come back. I don't, it's just something that jumps out at me in budgets I've done in the past.
Yeah, we should, yeah.
Dennis, I take your point. I think it's a very good point. And as I think about this and the conversation, since the driver of this is the payment, and really what we're getting at is what's the future, what does the payment do, what's the convergence, that the money should be spent to identify how we can do things for our towns, specifically savings by doing services or whatever we can do in joint procurement so that we can save our towns money, which helps them even if we can't keep going with the payment at the levels that we've been doing, or the increases that we've been doing. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, the department has ever done a study to see how we can do services to our towns to save them on their IT side, or to do joint procurement of common, like we have a thing on tonight about janitorial services, things like this where we could do them jointly and find joint savings. And that's where we should spend the money, to look for those sources of savings. Because they're gonna be there. If we've never studied it, they're gonna be there, because this is something I have learned. And it's not anything that I would be involved in, but I just know enough to know that if you look, you will find savings that we could be providing to the town of
I'm
Reading,
sure
to the
there's savings
schools,
there,
public
yeah.
safety, in all our towns, potentially. And that would be a better way to spend money than just, hey, what's the future gonna be? Gee, I can't do as much.
If I can make a comment?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
And Wendy, this is no reflection on you. Budgets are always wrong.
Yeah.
You're always, budget is a projection into the future, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. They are always wrong. You have never ended a year with a perfect budget, right? You've been off by hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm sure, plus or minus, on any given year. So I wouldn't worry about the budget that you're going to approve tomorrow. I wouldn't have any issue with it to the tune of, if it was $1 million, absolutely. If it was $500,000, absolutely. But $100,000, I'm sorry, in the scheme of things, for an $80 million or so organization, it's really not there. I mean, the budget will either find more money or in certain areas, or lose money in other areas, or the power will go up and increase, and we'll be either over budget or under budget. And we have been every year. I mean, our budgets have never been perfect.
Usually, yeah, but and I agree with what you're saying. The only thing is, usually it's the emergency stuff that puts your budget over, storms and transformers blowing up, things like that you couldn't predict. This is something that you're predicting, and you're going to add it to the budget. That's my only
Sure.
input on it.
And I agree. Unfortunately, they.
Couldn't we put a placeholder on the budget for, as an estimate, since we're still in that process? We don't know what it's gonna be, but could we put an estimate just to hold it, so that, to address Dennis's concern?
Well, to Dennis's concern, why don't we just add $100,000 to the budget?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Can't do that?
And again, I'm not trying to rock the boat. I was just, something that came through my head as I'm looking at the way I've done budgets for 15 years.
I mean, it's sort of a contingency kind of thing, too. I mean, it doesn't have to be an emergency, but it could be a contingency, because, I mean, suppose someone got, I mean, God forbid, someone got an illness and couldn't work or whatever, and now you'd have to pay someone to go out and hire a new person at $150,000 to come in and replace them, and they take, X amount of dollars for a headhunter to go find somebody. You can't predict that, and it's not really an emergency. It just kind of happens in the course of business. So there's got to be contingencies in our budget, I would think. I mean, do we have any contingency areas?
I mean, you can always end up absorbing the cost one way or another.
Right.
If you're happened many times. The fact that we're not a line item budget, and that we do have operating funds to back us up, you know, I share John's sentiment that it's never gonna be perfect. And, you know, there are many other reasons why the budget would be, off. I don't really think it's a concern.
Yeah, I share your concern about it's our customers' money that we're
Yeah.
dealing with. But the flip side of that is, if we don't get this right, it could be a lot more than that we're underwater.
Right, because the whole
3 years
goal
in
of
the
this is
future.
to
Yeah.
watch out for the ratepayers' money.
Absolutely,
That's
yeah.
what the study is about.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, I would prefer not to do the study, I really would. But I just have this sense from everything that's been voiced and where the trends are going, that we're on a disaster path here, financial one. So we need to really address that somehow.
Yeah,
Well-
I guess to add to Wendy's comment, I mean, there's a natural, you always budget for full employment. No company is able to hire replacements to time with the departure, so you're always carrying a net favorable variance on labor, right? Generally, yeah, because someone leaves with a 2-week notice, you just can't, you know, some jobs you can, sometimes you have positions open, as we did this past year. I think you deferred, maybe not for fiscal reasons, you're just not ready to bring them in or whatever. But, you know, I think the point that Dennis raises is important. I think the question really goes back to you guys as operations, is we know that we need to spend something. I think what I'm hearing is that, one, we're not gonna spend it without approval, and two, that the budget is robust enough that if we needed to spend something in that magnitude, we would be able to handle it without impacting negatively the operation, kind of thing.
Well, what if
Sound
we,
right?
yeah,
It does, well, I mean, we're not when you say robust.
Yeah, I don't mean
we're
it-
not over-inflating.
no.
We're trying to, project the
But-
most, at the best level we can, the
Yeah.
expenses.
Yeah, it really, I guess there's enough discretion in terms of, because if you needed to spend 100,
Right.
there's no slush funds like that, but you just change the timing, you may spend that and delay something else timing-wise, just to accommodate the,
I think it would be a management decision
Yeah.
at that point.
Mr. Chair?
Mhm.
Could I make a recommendation that we have a motion to
yes.
ask our general manager to investigate getting proposals for this particular study?
I think that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, because, you know, in all honesty, I'm supposed to be meeting with this person this week, hopefully. And the question I'm going to ask him is this possible to determine? Because, you know, what this team has already given you in a spreadsheet might be the best we're going to get. And that's showing a convergence. So we make a decision amongst ourselves, okay, this is what we can do for this year and the next year, and we may have to continue to look at it every couple of years as we go. And that might be the best crystal ball we have. So, you know, I'm not going into this like, oh, can you read the crystal ball better than I? The question is going to be, you know, this is obviously occurring with a lot of different utilities. This is our scenario. What would be the assumptions that you would put into a study to provide to us? Okay, we've kind of already gotten information that's showing that approximately $8 million a year is what you should be investing into your infrastructure on a regular cyclic basis.
Right.
So we already have that input. Okay, Jane's already knows what direction we're going in the near future on power supply. What's transmission? I'm not really sure. I think Jane will tell you up. You know, like I said, like Dave's saying, it may be something that, you know, we may not be able to get the best information. But, you know, we're also trying to convey something to the town that, you know, maybe they need a document that's beyond what we can do in order for this to be a reality. I mean, you know, we've had a number of conversations, and then the white paper comes out, and everyone is like, okay, now we have the white paper, now we know it's solid. But we knew it was solid before the white paper came out. So sometimes you do these studies because, you know, it gives you more information, and it makes everybody feel good about whatever decision that we have to make. You know, we all want to help the community, but again, it's very simple. I mean, if the sales are going down, we can't have something going up unless the rate goes up to cover it, which we know from the white paper you can't do.
Right.
So it's just that simple. It's just how quickly do we need to make a change? Can we sustain something flat for 5 years, then take a look at it again? You know, maybe it's something like that.
Yeah, the more I think of it, Colleen makes a good point. So, I mean, the question may be answered in terms of taking what data we already have and maybe some other inquiries outside of the circle that we work in to determine, what we're really trying to say is, at what point does the payment become unaffordable to the town, right? You need, CapEx has to be so much. We know the boundaries, of how much we can make as utility, so we should be able to figure out at what point, because right now, the issue really, Dennis, is, and everyone, if we don't address the issue, it's gonna keep going up. It's, the agreement calls for,
With inflation, right.
CPI index, so we know that's not gonna work for anyone, so we can just say we'll stop doing it, but that's not a, that just stops it. We need to somehow tie it to some realistic, here's what we think it can be without disadvantaging the rest of the cab, group, and then.
Well, you made a motion,
Yes, well,
So-
I would like
so,
general manager to investigate to the best of her ability whether it makes sense to have a study, to engage a consultant to answer the kinds of questions that she feels should be in the scope of the study, and let it see, then provide us with feedback at our next meeting.
that sounds good. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
All right. I think we had a lot of discussion. Afraid to ask for more. But I'll say it because it's part of the procedure. Discussion.
Yeah, I just think, I will say, I think it's, what Colleen just said made a lot of sense. She's gonna find out if there's even more that that can be learned than what we already know. And it doesn't mean we're approving a study or even approving funding for a study. We're just asking Colleen to have the
Colleen to-
conversation.
Right.
So with that,
That's right. So all in favor?
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Motion passed. Well, that was a long one. Okay, what is next here? General Manager's update, reliability reports.
I'm gonna turn it over to Hamid.
All right.
Projector got tied.
Good evening.
Hello.
Okay, you all have the spreadsheet, right, in front of you for the reliability recommendations?
We do?
I think I could spend the whole night to talk about every single item, but I'm not gonna.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
I'm not gonna take up your time, so I'm just gonna give. So
Any
if you all
questions for
agree, I'm
Hamid?
gonna give you just the highlights.
All right.
Because, all right. Since the last time, we have actually one item that is complete. You see that there is a lot on this spreadsheet. I mean, there are like about 71 items that we have identified, and most of them they're completed. There's some in progress, and the rest are in planning, which you have the explanations on the far right under the RMLD work plan. What we completed since the last time, you could see that on the third page, item number 52, the Station 3 15 kV breakers. Number 2, the closing spring assembly that needed to be replaced. I'm glad to announce that the Station 3 work is all completed. Everything went through A to Z. The automation is completed. The breakers are being maintained right now. The relays are replaced, and also the last piece of the equipment that we needed to install to bring the arc flash under the acceptable rating for the safety of the workers. The work just got completed last week. So now we are fully in compliance with the arc flash requirement, which followed by the study that was done, reliability study, and the study that we did for the arc flash. So that is 100% completed. The other good news that I have for you, and that would be the item number 25, the booth study under the outage management system. That outage management system that we've been talking about, automation there, it's on first page.
The bottom,
Item
bottom
number
item?
22.
Oh,
Item
22,
number
okay.
22, under the outage management system. That's being installed as we speak. So the consultant, they started installing that surveillance today. It's going to be completed by end of the week. And the staff, they're going to be trained next week. And that would be completed hopefully by end of next week. Where we going after that? We're going to go to IVR. We are interviewing the IVR companies now as we speak. There's a committee that includes me, Jane, Wendy, the MIS, and 2 other engineers that we're looking into.
I'm sorry, what is IVR?
IVR, that's an interactive voice response.
Ah, okay.
That's the same thing that, in National Grid, then, in Gloucester, you see that, if there's an outage, then a National Grid is going to send you the voice message that we know you're out. You're going to be out approximately for an hour and a half.
Right.
And, the crews are dispatched to fix the problem. So basically, it's going to give us the vehicle so we can get back to the customers, putting their mind at ease that, we know you're out, we are aware of that, and we are doing something about it, and approximately takes how many minutes or hours in order to fix the problem. So it's very efficient. So we're bringing more technology into the mix, and that's going to save us lots of money. I mean, this is the money well spent, because that's going to reduce the truck rolls, and it's going to increase the efficiency and less frustrations for our customers during the outages, that everybody has anxiety, when I'm going to be back, and whether do they know that I'm out, and it tells them basically that well, we are on our way to fix your problem. That's what the next is coming next year. So we're doing that, and the other one under the distributed generation program, item number 22 has several sections. That one also, as you know, we got $1 million grant from the Governor Baker, for installing the 4.5 megawatts battery storage at Station 3. We already did the generator at 2.5 megawatts, and now this is going to be added right next to it. And that is in progress. So
What number is that?
that's also number item 22, the last
The last item?
the last item
Yep.
under the 22. So that one is also being planned. So we're making progress on that as well. The rest of them, they basically are either in planning or ongoing, or they're in progress. And most of them, they're very dependent on the station, the new Wilmington substation, that we have a proposed site for construction of the new substations. And we just got the letter of intent on the site that we had in mind. So see, we approach the town to get the variance. And so we are doing due diligence in order to come up with, hopefully we can get the permit and then continue the construction, start the construction. So basically this is it. We also making some feeder adjustments that, so to basically balance the load on the feeders. That is some of these items that, they identified, so that's being done. Analog being one of them. They got 3 feeders, 2 feeders that, they actually feeding, and 1 backup. So they're doing some readjustments on the load inside, so to shift the load, down the ratings of, to bring actually up the ratings of the cables that right now they're kind of congested and overloaded. So we're working with the customers and some of the planning as part of the new substations that's going to help to provide load relief for Station 3 and Station 4, as well as with the customers' cooperations, which we're getting that should be, we're going to be in good shape, at least for load balancing. The other one that it needs is really, it's getting completed nearly. It's done almost 99%, and that's implement the GIS upgrade program. The GIS is completed. What we did, that's item number 6. The reason I don't have it completed, because right now we just sent a model to Millsoft. That's an engineering model that to be reviewed and to be cleaned, so we can use that for engineering studies that they're coming up, and our engineers, they do that. So we're almost there, almost 1% left. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, 2 weeks or so, by end of the month, I should have the Millsoft model. And that's a substantial savings that it's gonna bring for us, because now we're gonna be able to have more tools to do engineering analysis in-house, as opposed to, farming it out for some specific applications and studies. Now, it's not gonna, I'm not saying that, we're not gonna go out to any, consultant anymore. There's some areas that, because, we are training our staff, as well as we don't have the resources in-house ready to do those specific projects. We're still gonna have to use consultants, but that's gonna reduce the cost for us for a number, and improving the efficiency of engineering, and more science being added to the jobs and planning that, moving forward. So that concludes my meeting, basically my report. If you have any specific questions on any of these 71 items, I'll be more than happy to explain that.
Okay, any questions for me?
Just a comment, I think it's great, the way it's getting tracked. It shows progress, and I think it helps justify why we're spending so much CapEx.
Yeah, that's right, that's right, it is. And most of those are being taken care of, the ones in planning, through the capital authorization projects. And these are what the consultants, they have, identified. And there's actually more to it that we know of, and we have other programs. As you see, I'm going through my presentation, you see those maintenance areas that, they are not really captured. They're talking about it, about the lack of maintenance and the need for system improvements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they haven't come down to nitty-gritty of what, should be done next, that we have implemented those programs for maintaining our assets in the system.
Good. Any other questions for Hamid? Dennis, do you have any? Thank you, Hamid.
Thanks,
Thank
Hamid.
I think, Jane, you're next.
Thank you. Just a couple of announcements. RMLD will be participating in Reading's Earth Day, and that's going to be taking place this Saturday, April 21st, from 10 to 2 at the Parker Middle School. So if anyone is out there, we'll have a booth there. In addition, we are continuing to host our Save Energy and Money series that we're holding at the various libraries. We were in Linfield and Wilmington last week. And on Thursday, April 26th at 6 o'clock, we'll be at the Reading Library. And then on May 7th, we'll be in North Reading at the Flint Memorial Library, and those are both at 6 o'clock. I'm going to
You
report.
said 10 to 2 at Parker Middle School this Saturday?
Correct.
Is it an outside thing?
I think they'll have some electric vehicles that will be outside, and then they'll have vendors and booths on the inside. So they'll be utilizing both the weather permitting outdoors and inside.
Okay.
I believe it's in the gym at the middle school.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Good.
We're here to report on February. The first slide that we look at here is looking at spot market prices, which is the day ahead and the real-time prices. And it's looking at the 5 years from 2014 to 2018. As you can see from the graph, both the day ahead and the real-time prices have dropped considerably in 2014. The average day ahead price was $156.24. And in February of 2018, that dropped to $39.48. It should be noted, though, that there was approximately a 30% increase between 2017 and 2018. That went from $30.33 in the day ahead to $39.48. And in the real time, it was $29.02 to $36.88. RMLD does take power in the spot market, so we take advantage of those low-cost service compared to 2014.
Jane, just out of curiosity, I probably ask this quite often, but That's a huge difference from 2014 to 2018. What happened in the environment to cause that?
In 2014, we had the cold snap, and that was the beginning of the natural gas constraint.
Got it.
And again, weather plays a considerable role. If you can see, you'll see in the next couple slides, we looked at heating degree days, which kind of gives you a benchmark of
Great.
what really drives those things. And this next slide, ooh,
We're just conserving power there.
That's right.
Go ahead, Jane.
Okay.
Just,
yeah,
We
you
have,
have the
Tell us.
slides,
We
and
got
again,
it here.
Yeah, we got it
they'll,
here.
they'll be attached.
we got it right here on our.
The next slide
worry
looks
about
at the embedded fuel cost for energy and then the heating degrees. And so again, if we look at the bar charts that are in front of you, those are the heating degree days. So in 2014, there was a 1,179 heating degree days. 2015, that was 1,450. And then in 2018, it was 809. So this past February, what this tells you was the warmest February within the last 5 years. And
Warmer
then-
than March, we heard, right?
Pardon me?
Yeah, I heard it was actually warmer than March.
Yeah, I believe that, because we had a lot of the storms that March with a lot of the snow, and February was considerably warmer. And then if we look at the fuel cost in a cents per kilowatt hour, we were at 6.15 cents in 14, and in 2018 that was about 5.88. And then again, comparing 17 to 18, there was about a 16% increase in our embedded average fuel cost. Then the next, the final slide kind of looks at just the overall cost of that. So again, we kept the heating degree days just to kind of show you how that tracks pricing. And then in 2018, RMLD's average energy cost was $2.9 million compared to $2.5 million in 2017. So there was about a $439,000 increase. And what attributed the bulk of that was the addition of hydro energy. We had considerably more hydro in 2018 than we did in 2017. And that comes at a little higher cost, so those costs averaged around $216,000. And then the balance of the difference of that could be contributed to price increases in the forward contracts that we had acquired throughout the years. So one of the lower price contracts from BP Energy expired, and then we picked up an additional contracts of EDF Trading and Xterra. So those were the driving forces of the overall cost. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any questions for Jane?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane.
Thanks, Jane.
All right. Wendy, are you coming on up too? Once again? Financial report?
Financial report for the first 8 months of the fiscal year ending February 28th.
Should we be in the handout, Wendy? Is that,
There's two different handouts, so you have your financials and you have these slides.
okay? Got it.
Okay, so I thought I'd try a different format tonight, might be easier for you to follow, so I kind of bulleted, highlighted some of the statements I typically make about particular items on the financials. So the first bullet, unrestricted cash of $15.3 million, covers almost 2 months of operating expenses at February 28th of 18. The accounts receivable, looking at the balance sheet, are 97% current, and I wanted to clarify that we consider up to 90 days as current, because it moves, it moves pretty quickly within the 90 days with each customer, so that's why we consider that current. Then if you, staying on the balance sheet, net plant increased by $3.7 million as compared to last year at the same time. And then if you wanted to follow in the financials, you could. Going to the profit and loss statement, the base revenue increased by 1.1% year to year. but there was a decrease of kilowatt-hour sales of 1.7%. And there's also a decrease of the base revenue as compared to the budget of 1.8%. Purchase power fuel expense exceeded purchase power fuel revenue by $2.2 million, and purchase power capacity and transmission, or PPCT, expenses exceeded PPCT revenue by about $412,000.
Wendy, can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
On the last one, revenue went up by 1.1%, but sales went down by 1.7?
Yes.
So that means we raised our
Right.
prices faster than sales
No.
went down.
No, actually, the sales are going down more than what we increased our rates.
Okay, thank you.
And then operating and maintenance expenses are currently under budget by about 4.7%, and that's at the end of February. But looking at the projected March numbers with the storms, it's not looking that way for March, just so you know. Okay, so then I thought it would be kind of relevant, since we've been having some discussions in the past couple of months with the slides I'm presenting. They're not necessarily in regards to February, but I think it's important for everybody to get a better understanding, and sometimes visual aids help. So the first slide I had prepared was the stacking of the different buckets, if you will, of where the capital funds come from. So if you look at the blue represents the beginning balance that's supposed to, if everything, is in line perfectly, which we all know it's not going to be, the blue represents the beginning balance that's projected to start the depreciation fund off. And then the orange is the actual depreciation expense for the year, the 3% that we expense that goes into the depreciation fund. And then you have your gray, your operating fund transfer. So that's what we've collectively come to decide we should transfer every year, projecting out the 6 years, in order to meet our capital needs. And then you have your yellow. It's bond proceeds and other proceeds. And other could mean some forced jobs by the state of Massachusetts, for example. So then this is what we are currently projecting that we would be going out to bond for in order to meet the capital needs going forward for the years in the future. So then you have the green bar represents all your capital improvement projections for the next 6 years as well. So the goal here is not to get below $1 million. So at the end of FY23, you notice there that we're right in line with our goal, which is why we need to continue to add to the funds in order to meet our goal at the end of the day.
So Wendy, do you add the orange and green if you're looking at it?
Yes, so the stacking is just to show you the buckets
Yeah.
of where the different funds are coming from, and the total, I didn't put the totals on the top. If you want to know the totals, I can go through that with you.
Well, just so look at FY18.
Okay,
Does that mean we're
FY18.
spending $8 million and
As compared to 10.4 million in total funds. and then
isn't there a connection between the depreciation amount and that 8 million? Is there any?
No, the 8 million's the total that we're going to be spending. So the depreciation is on gross plant. We're depreciating 3% of gross plant.
Okay.
Okay? So we're trying to make sure we have enough funds to support our capital spending.
Okay.
Do you want me to go through the totals of each year? Of how
No,
much?
I was just
No,
trying to,
okay.
so if you just look at FY18,
Mhm.
all in, we're spending 8 million on capital improvements in
In
total?
FY18, we're projected to come in at $8 million, yes. Okay?
Yep.
All right, so we'll move to the next slide. So the next slide shows the projected net income as compared to what we're projecting the rate of return to come in at. And that shows you that downward trend that Colleen's been talking about. So there's our net income in dollars and how it's going to affect our rate of return at the end of the day. And now this does take into account the rate increases that we have projected in our budget, and still trying to be responsible to the customers as well, trying to get to that 6% ROR at the end of the 6 years, hoping that we can stay there with our expenses.
Well, just back on Aren't there some tax, I don't quite remember all the details, but aren't there some new tax laws that'll impact what you can take for depreciation and when you can expense it? I don't remember all the details.
With respect to business expenses. So, yeah, with business expenses, they've raised the, what you can deduct up front. I believe that's now $1 million. It used to, it was $500,000. But that's something that wouldn't affect here.
But I also thought there was some impact on how you could handle depreciation versus expense.
Well, yeah, those rules have been around, whether it's expense or capitalization.
Right. But I
There's
thought
some
there was
rules, but that's not a new rule.
No, I thought there was some changes. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
Okay. And then the final slide is showing the downward trend in the kilowatt-hour sales and what we're projecting is going to happen based on what Jane has been saying, that the kilowatt-hour sales are decreasing by about 1% every year, and also where it lies with our rate of return. So, I mean, I just wanted to present these slides based on our conversations the past couple of months. Maybe it's some, you know, it shows some clarity to what's happening.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Yep.
Yes.
Wendy, I just want, Dave asked the question, I wasn't sure I fully followed what you said. So on your first slide, base revenues increased by a little over 1%, right? With a decrease in kilowatt sales.
Yes.
So what else is impacting base revenue besides kilowatt sales?
That's it. But we increased the rates at 7/1/17. Right, we increased, I want to say 4%, I don't remember. The overall, no,
So
last year.
that's all a function of the rate increase.
Do you remember? Last year it was 2 to 4% based on, overall, based on the class. So the 2 to 4% increase is giving us our overall 1.1% increase in base revenue.
It's equivalent to a price increase, basically.
Right, exactly. So if we hadn't put the increase in, we would be, you know, we'd have.
Revenue's down,
Right, exactly.
1.1%.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. That concludes my presentation. Any other questions?
Yeah, thanks, these are helpful slides.
Yes.
They fit in.
Thank you, Wendy.
discussion.
Okay. Mead, you back up? No, it keeps on coming back for more.
Need some money.
Well, I'm here to give you a report for the month of February for engineering and operations. The first slide basically is showing you the capital improvement projects spendings for the month of February. And you could see the next column, the year-to-date actual and what was budgeted and the remaining balance on the far right. So we're basically making good progress on those projects. Like what I've been mentioning, most of these projects, they come into an end the last quarter of the fiscal year. We just finished 2 projects, and there are a couple more that they're ongoing, and you're going to see these expenditures going up, basically maybe going a little bit over what was budgeted for, but for good reasons. So that's the first page. The next slide basically is giving you the routine capital in constructions. These are the ones that they're part of the capital improvements, but they're not projects, such as the pole settings and transfers, overhead underground constructions, pole damages or crackdowns, the knockdowns, the hazmat and oil spills, porcelain cutout replacement, and going all the way to the last, which is the miscellaneous capital costs like capital equipment, and also all the stuff that goes into the infrastructures. The overall spending for the month of February, which was a slow month, was $172,803, bringing the year total to $978,598. The next slide shows you the facilities, integrated resource division, and IT departments, the spendings in the month of February, and the total spendings for the year to date. So You see in the last actually chart in the bottom, you see that the total spendings for the month of February was 443,124, bringing the year to date to 3,936,645. And what was budgeted was 7,685,521. The remaining was $3,748,876. So we are on track. The next slide shows you the routine maintenance and transfer. Among all of them, we're making good progress. Transformer replacement program, with pad mount transformer replaced approximately 28.5%. Almost 1/3 of those, very scary pad mount transformers that, they leak and, they fail here, there. Almost 1/3, but we're not out of the woods yet. We still got plenty to go. The overhead, in the overhead category, approximately 20% we have replaced, and we're getting more and more done as these capital improvement projects are underway. Pole inspections, we've made good progress. So far we've replaced 193 poles that have been replaced. 178 of those 193 transfers have been completed. We are really doing well on transfers. If you see there's still some double poles in the communities, that's because, unfortunately, we don't have any control over Verizon and Comcast.
Right.
And I know the people that might be thinking that, that double pole been there and, RMLD is not removing it. It's not us. It's we are pretty much keeping up with our stuff that need to be transferred. And
what's the process like if you find that Comcast, for example, is not taking action? Do we have any leverage with them, or is it just squeaky wheel? How do you...
The best way to do that is really, when they're either contacting them directly. Obviously, the customers, they don't know, but if they call us, we let them know that, this is Verizon or Comcast. They can call them and, push them. We do that too. As soon as we find out and we see that, they have the same program as we do. We're all following the engine program. You're going to see that in the slide. So they know, they're aware of the backlog and what's in their plate. So it's not like they don't know that. They know it. I think most of it, like Verizon is trying to get rid of the poles, get rid of the pole business all total together. So they are cutting back forces. So that's why it's taking so long for pole placement.
So they're more behind than we are on the same
They are
types
much
of
behind
issues.
than where we are. And then the other way to do that to really push them is when they come for pole petitions and here to the towns and asking them, the selectmen, they could tell them that we are concerned about those double poles and you need to take care of those and give us report at the next
Do we need to
board
get that
meeting.
message to the selectmen? Do they have a very explicit sort of statement from us
Right.
to not let Verizon get away with doing this?
That would be helpful. That would be very helpful.
How do we
Because
do that?
it's
Yeah, because aren't they, I think I overheard that the town was negotiating with Telecom right now on contracts, weren't
Right.
they? I think they're in the middle of that now.
right.
So this might be the right timing.
That would be the right timing to do that, to let them know that this is what the problem is, and we are seeing more and more of those. The ones that are within our controls, they're getting done in a timely fashion. But we cannot remove the pole, unless everybody has transferred. And in our annual, semi-annual meetings that Colin and I and Jane we bring that report to the towns. They see that the selectmen, they're seeing basically what it looks like in every community. But it wouldn't hurt, if we send a reminder to the selectmen that when they come in or they get into contact with them, to
But
remind
we
them.
have visibility to what's on the selectmen
Their agenda.
agenda, right?
Well, I know that was on the agenda. I think it was on the agenda this past week.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm thinking is whether one of us should, with the right words, be at the meeting.
Yeah, and what's the exact message, that we want to convey?
That they need to expedite their transfers. That's what it takes. You know, if they
No
do that
contract.
in a timely fashion, some of those, yeah, some of those transfers, they're sitting there for months. I mean, in our system.
So
they
it's
don't
really
s-
not about the pole removal, it's more about transferring the wires,
That's
what's.
right, that's right. And it takes a long time. They don't have, you know.
How far
enough
behind are they?
Well, I'm going to get to that
All right,
slide. You're
all
going
right.
to see that, you know, where we are now. But, you know, there are quite few that, you know, they could take care of. And I don't know how they're set up, but we make the phone calls when we see that something, you know, it's been sitting in their queue for so long. Or when the customers, they complain and we tell them, it's not really us, please. Don't think that, you know, we are holding you up. But we make the phone calls, but you know, that's the only thing we can do, but we don't have any leverage to push them to expedite it, put it this way. All right, any other questions on this? You know,
No.
this is my favorite subject too, so. Quarterly inspection of the feeders, we do that. The crews, they've been doing a pretty good job to stay on top of that, making sure that, you know, there are no obvious signs of deteriorations or problems on the lines. Manhole inspections, it's underway. The porcelain cutouts, we're making progress on those as we're going through these capital improvement projects and replacing those or removing them out of the service. The next slide that shows you the tree trimming. We are right on target. We're doing great. Obviously, we took a lot of took care of a lot of those trees during these 4 back-to-back storms.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we've been cutting a lot, and you know, some of them unfortunate because the whole tree came down and on the lines, and they made extensive damages. But pretty much we took care of them. That is still we're making. We're going around still dealing with some of the leftovers from the storms. Substation maintenance, that's going great. We haven't seen any obvious hot spots on any of the substations that needed to be taken care of. The underground substation upgrade, this is huge. This is what my biggest concern is, and that's what we've all been talking about, because the infrastructure of the RMLD facilities in underground, they're old. We have a program that, you know, we prioritize by the age, and we're going through these communities, and we basically uproot everything and, you know, replace everything, upgrade them. We got transformers and communities that are long, you know, the facilities that they're over 45 years old. And, you know, the average age of those, it's 20 to 25. And, you know, when you push it that long, you know, the system hasn't been maintained, that could show that, you know, you get into trouble. So recently we completed the Crestwood Estate in North Reading, Aspen Road, and Long Hill Lane. And we got the list of the in-progress communities that, you know, we are taking care of. Shasta Drive, Westover Drive, Greenbrier Drive in North Reading, Great Neck Drive in Wilmington, Gandalf Estate, Wilmington, Deerfield Place in North Reading, and Cherokee Lane in Wilmington. So all of those, the construction, those is in progress. So that's going to improve the reliability in a great deal. Making good progress on those. Double poles. This is basically, as you know, we got approximately 16,000 poles, 50%. The ownership between Verizon and RMLD is 50-50. But the custodial, RMLD has the North Reading and half the Reading, and the rest of the communities, the custodial is with Verizon. And, you know, the custodial meaning that, you know, after all the transfers are taken place, then, in those areas that we have the custodial, we remove the pole butt, and the areas that Verizon has the custodial, they have to remove the pole butts. So again, going back to the double poles, when you see that, you know, those poles in Wilmington or, you know, Linfield or half the Reading, when you see them that, you know, they're not being taken care of, this is the responsibility of Verizon to remove the pole butts. So we can't touch it. And if we do, there would be a huge union issue. So the next slide shows you the engines. This is the program that I really like, because all of the utilities, they have this, basically they're part of this program. They know basically it's a ball in court program. that they know exactly how many they have, and there's absolutely no way that they're not aware of how many double poles they got, or how many transfers, and how many pole bots they're gonna have to remove. In Linfield, you could see that RMLD has only 6 transfers to do. In North Reading, we got 10 transfers and 35 pole bots that needs to be removed. If you recall, at one point it was 99. And then, we've been taking care of those, trying to, after, making so many phone calls to Verizon, Comcast, pushing them ready to do their transfers. So we brought it down. But these numbers, they go up and down. Most people, they don't like to see them going up. I love to see them going up, because that means that, we are making improvements. So something is being done. And that shows how, we are going around making improvements and improving the reliabilities. But we're taking care of them in a timely manner. So in Reading also, we got 25 transfers and 52 pole bots that needs to be removed by Verizon. In Wilmington, we got 8 transfers that Verizon got 8 transfers. We got 32 transfers and 4 pole bots that needs to be removed by Verizon. Basically, that's the status. And my staff, they're good in following up with these, and they're making the phone calls. We got good contacts with Verizon, but again, there's only so much you could push. So the next slide, the last slide, is the reliability. As you could see, the reliability in all areas pretty much is well below the national and the regional averages, both SAIDI, KD, and SAFE, and we're doing good. We're doing good. It doesn't mean that, we don't need to do anything, and, we're doing good because, we're keeping up with the maintenance. And we've got a long way to go in order to keep these numbers where we'd like to see them. So it's a continued effort, and we need to make sure we keep up with those programs and spending money on the system. The last slide basically is showing the causes of outages. As you could see, again, for so far in up to February, these numbers, they're going to go up a little bit in March because we had the storm, those back-to-back storms. But pretty much we're well below the 5 years average on all categories, as you could see. And that shows those maintenance programs are paying off.
Right.
At least,
It's a huge difference.
yeah, it's coming. It's getting better and better. And that was my last slide. If you have any questions, more than 2, I'm happy to give you,
Thank you, Amit.
by all means.
Dennis?
Good.
No?
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Hamid.
Good, you're welcome. I'm gonna
We
stay
have
here
some
for the
things
bids,
to-
I
yeah,
guess.
some
guys?
bids.
Right, yep.
I guess the
Sorry, we're out of time.
Jane, you wanna come?
So, somebody want to read a motion? Or do you want to do the background? How do we do it first?
You read the motion first. Let me read the
Motion first, okay.
Move the proposal 2018-36 for residential energy audits be awarded to Energy New England for $176,400 pursuant to MGL Chapter 30B as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder on the recommendation of General Manager.
Okay. Second?
Second.
It's a 3-year contract, right?
You know,
Yeah.
3-year
3-year
contract, it says it right there.
it doesn't need to be part
Do
of
you want to
the
give us the
motion.
background on
Sure,
that?
I'll do this one.
Okay.
RMLD sent out bids on March 26 to 17 companies. On April 9th, we received 3 responses, one from Energy New England, one from Healthy Homes, and one from Strategic Serendipity LLC. They were analyzed by staff. Overall, the bid is lower than the current vendor that we currently have by approximately $7,300 over that 3-year period. In evaluating all the bids, Energy New England provided sample reporting, which included value added to the RMLD customers. There are going to be reduced a digital computer report for all audits performed that will go directly to the customer as well as RMLD. RMLD will have access to all collected data. Right now, currently, it's handwritten, and then we have to go and create a database and then extract the data, so it'll be a much more efficient process. And it also, the report will also include a return on investment for the customers who are actually considering making the recommended changes, whether that's insulation, appliances, et cetera, and that will be based on RMLD's current rates. Overall, they're very pleased, and we're very comfortable with proceeding forward with Energy New England.
Great. Question, Jane?
Jane, just curious, do they make the money exclusively on audits, or do they have a potential for revenue if they are contracted by the homeowner?
Yeah, the way we do it, we keep it very separate. Like with the existing vendor, the cost per audit includes just the audit, and we specifically ask that they don't make any sales pitches, because sometimes they have a list of vendors or are affiliated with a certain vendor. The way we did it with the current vendor is we had them sign a piece of paper saying that they were requesting additional information. And then again, we talk to all of our customers, and we always recommend that they get 3 references, look for 3 bids, so that they have comparable scopes in moving forward with any project.
Okay. So,
Get a motion in a second already, I think, right?
that's right, so we can vote, all in favor? Okay, pass 5-0.
Yep.
And the next motion, who's gonna read this one?
Move the proposal 2018-38 for pad-mounted transformers be awarded to Wesco Distribution, Inc. for $33,540, and Howard Industry, Inc., care of Power Supply Sales Group, for $74,089, for a total of $107,629 pursuant to MGL's Chapter 164, Section 56D, on the recommendation of the General Manager.
Okay, a second?
Second?
All right, discussion, background?
Yeah, these are the basically pad mount transformers for those underground subdivisions that we talked about, that should be uprooting everything and trying to upgrade all the transformers and cables. And so this is what this project, as well as the new construction, new underground subdivisions. So there was, we had in the budget 93,804, out of that, 107,629. The difference is being paid by a developer for the underground, the new subdivisions that they're going in Martin's Landing in North Reading. So we are using exactly what was money, the money that was in the budget that was appropriate for it. The extra is going for the development that, we already collected the money from the customer. So basically that's what it is. We sent a bid out to 15 vendors, and we received the response back from a number of them, from 4 actually. And Wesco was the lowest responsive bidder for $33,540. The Howard Industries and the Power Sales for $74,089, bringing the total to $107,629.
So the developer will be paying the $10,000 difference?
They have paid already, I believe. We've received the money, to the best of my knowledge. Or, yeah, they're gonna pay we charge them for the, transformers, yes.
Right.
The rest it is.
Great. Okay, all those in favor?
Yep.
Okay, motion passes.
Ready for the next one?
And the next one, yeah?
Move that bid 2018-40 for janitorial services be awarded to SJ Services, Inc. for $101,424 pursuant to MGL Chapter 30B as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder on the recommendation of General Manager.
Okay, second?
Second. Again, this is a 3-year contract.
3-year
Yeah.
contract, yep.
This is a 3-year contract, and this was a very interesting bid, because 2 of the bidders that, they came out as lowest. They were the previous contractors that we had to end their contract due to a number of reasons that I'm not at the liberty to really discuss online. Maybe offline we can, bring you more reasons for that. But The bid, we're making recommendations to award it to the third lowest bidder. Which is S&J Services for $101,424,000. Part of the reason in general, without getting into the details, are that, some of the insurance requirements that they were supposed to provide, they didn't fully meet those requirements. And another problem, it's basically with the certificate that they needed to provide for their labor that, we had to chase them, and, we had a hard time getting those. And I'm not just gonna leave it at that.
Okay.
So,
Discussion, yeah?
yes.
So, does that cover, is it basically the cleaning of the offices
Yes.
and the facilities?
Right.
And is that like a night, every night kind of thing, or?
Yeah, every day, right, every night, right, after the people leave. We took off part of that, that it's be doing it in-house, like the Barbus building and dusting in the operations. But the rest of that is basically general cleaning.
Oh, so does it include more than just this building?
Yeah, includes, this building, as well as part of the building in the operations, the alignment area.
It's a daily kind of.
It's a daily kind of cleaning.
May I add to that? Yeah, we took off large areas that just required sweeping, because you're charged per square foot. So we took that off. So it's general office areas now.
So who does the large areas?
Our facilities,
We do.
we do it ourselves.
That doesn't include the materials too. You guys supply that, or is that all the materials to paper products, cleaning products?
Part of that, we provide the cleaning stuff, right? The vacuum and everything, they provide, they have their own vacuum. But the cleaning products, we have them.
We were gonna ask, Dave and I were gonna ask you, but you probably have janitors at school systems, correct?
Yeah.
Full-time
I
janitors?
used SJ Service at a previous company. I can share some information offline.
Okay.
Okay, good. Should we vote on it?
It was nothing really
Oh,
bad. It was
okay.
just some stuff to be like aware of for your day-to-day operation communication-wise.
Okay.
I learned how to use Babelfish at the time, or Google Translator, to make sure that everything got translated properly. So I used to type what I wanted, and once I started doing that, everything happened correctly.
Oh,
Before that, there were some issues with communication, because the supervisor that would show up to different sites spoke English fine, but the people working day-to-day would say yes, and then what was going to get done didn't get done.
Right.
And so we just went
Oh, I
to
see.
translate it online, left that hanging, and then we never had a problem again. So
Okay, that's
it's
good
just
to know.
something to keep in mind as
That's
far
good
as
feedback.
how many
Mm,
people.
Great feedback, yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Should we vote?
All in favor?
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hamid. Okay.
All right, general discussion. We have some meetings coming up here. So it's Wednesday, is that May? I'm looking at that.
And the 10th.
So May 9th and 10th. All right.
At 6:30, if that's okay for everyone.
What is that for? Oh, that's
The
not on this?
budgets.
This is the budget meetings?
Well, they're both budget, but the Thursday will be budget and the regular board meeting as well.
Are those in our calendars?
9th and 10th,
Not
okay.
yet, but they will be tomorrow.
So 9th and 10th, does that work for everybody?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah,
make
I think so.
sure. And that's good for you.
I can't do the 10th.
Okay.
Yep, that's it. You're out.
I can do the 9th.
What about the
But-
8th and 9th?
I'll have to.
You want to check that?
if
Yeah.
There's nothing else going on.
There's something in the calendar, 6:30 on the 9th.
For us?
Yeah, RMLD,
Yeah, that's gonna be it.
That's it, yeah.
and then Thursday at 7:30.
Yeah. So I had sent them already. Okay, if you can't do I'll send out emails tomorrow and we'll
Okay.
try to coordinate it.
We so look forward to those, Tracy. No, I do. They're easier to answer than some of the other ones.
Yeah, rather than.
And then June 21st and July 19th.
June 20.
Different animal.
June 21st, let's see. June 21st. And, okay, and
Okay.
July 19th, just a second,
And then
July 19th.
And then
Yep.
August is NEPA. That's what, like the last weekend in August, usually? Close to the end of the
Yeah, do we have a date for that?
third or fourth week?
Yep.
A lot of information about it,
Yeah.
but, as soon as I know more, I'll let you know.
It's on the NEPA website already.
Yeah.
Was it on the NEPA
It's on the,
website?
it's been there since January.
Oh, God.
Okay. And then
Press
cab
release,
meeting,
yeah.
Dave, you got the April 18th cab? That's tomorrow? You're good?
Yes,
You're
yes,
good with
I'm
that?
on top of that.
Excellent. And John's got May 16th.
Yeah, May 16th, yep.
This says board material available but not discussed. What does that mean?
It's just,
It's some of the stuff that's on your iPad.
on the iPad, it's a rate comparison, and then
Yeah.
a thing just saying there were no.
The rate comparison and the accounts payable questions.
Oh, okay.
See, if you get that far on your iPad.
That's right. I didn't get to that slide.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. And, all right, good. So I think with that, we can go to executive session.
Okay.
So do I read the motion?
No.
Oh, you read the motion, okay.
Move that the board go into executive session to consider the purchase of real property and to return to regular session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Second?
Second. All those in favor?
Pull the board, pull the board,
Oh, pull the board.
hold the board.
Talbot, aye.
Tom O'Rourke, aye.
Mr. Hennessy, aye.
Mr. Pacino, aye.
Mr. Stempak, aye.
Yep.
All right,
Okay.
what do you think?
this meeting is ended.
You don't bang it at the end. You bang it to start.
Oh, just to the start.